All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a story that literally shaped our world, the origin of Islam. We're going to trace how a single, powerful message heard in a quiet mountain cave blossomed into a global faith in an incredible civilization. Let's get into it.
So, our story doesn't start in some grand palace or on a chaotic battlefield. It starts right here, in silence. And that idea in the quote, a single voice cutting through the quiet to wake up the world, that's the heart of it all. It sets the stage for everything that's about to unfold.
Okay, so, Section 1, A Voice in the Silence. We're starting right at the very beginning, following this journey from a personal revelation in a cave to a message that would eventually reach across the globe.
Now, you have to understand, in a society that was filled to the brim with idols and tribal gods, this message was, well, it was revolutionary. It wasn't a grab for money or for power. It was this deeply profound call to rethink reality itself and your place in the universe. For a full 3 years, this idea wasn't shouted from the rooftops. It was actually kept secret, shared very carefully, and only with a small circle of trusted friends and family. The goal was to build a solid foundation, a small community, before taking the message public.
And then came this verse. This was the turning point. It was a divine command that essentially said, okay, the time for secrets is over. This was the moment the message had to go from quiet whispers to a public declaration. Next up, a message meets resistance. And let's be real, when you take an idea this radical and make it public, you're going to get some pushback. This next chapter is all about that collision course, the clash between this new, emerging faith and the old, established powers of Mecca.
This slide really gets to the heart of the conflict. You see, on one side, you have the prophet's message, calling for things like justice, compassion, and unity under a single God. And on the other side, you have the powerful Quraysh tribe. Their entire social status, their economy, their traditions, it was all tied up in idol worship and tribal power. This wasn't just a simple disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of worldviews.
And the resistance wasn't just a war of words. It got brutal and it got systematic. It started with ridicule, but quickly escalated to physical assaults, death threats, and even the torture of his followers. They even organized a crippling economic boycott to try and starve the community into giving up. This was an all-out campaign to stamp out the movement before it could grow. So in the face of all that pressure, what was the response? Well, this quote says it all. It shows an absolutely unshakable resolve. It's this powerful declaration that no matter what threats or bribes they offered, he was not going to abandon this message.
With the persecution in Mecca becoming just unbearable, the story hits this major turning point. But what happens next isn't a retreat. It's a strategic move, a migration to a new city where this small community could finally be safe and build the kind of society they dreamed of.
So this journey happened in a few key stages. As things got worse in Mecca, a group of followers actually left for Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, and found protection under its Christian king. But the real game changer was the Hijra, the moment the prophet and his entire community left Mecca for a city called Yathrib. It was there, in the city that would be renamed Medina, that they could finally build a new society, a place to worship freely.
And the Hijra is so much more than just a physical move. It was such a pivotal event that it marks year 1 of the Islamic calendar. This was really the birth of the Ummah, the global Muslim community, united not by blood or tribe, but by shared belief.
So now, years have passed, and the story comes full circle. The very community that was forced to flee Mecca is about to return. And this is really the climax of the narrative, but it plays out in a way that absolutely no one could have predicted.
Just imagine this for a second. The movement that started with just one man now returns to his home city, 10,000 strong. They hold all the power. The city that tormented them is now completely at their mercy. So the big question is, what are they going to do with that power?
And the answer is just incredible. At the absolute height of victory, the prophet's response wasn't revenge. It was forgiveness, a radical, sweeping forgiveness. He looked at his former enemies, the people who tried to destroy him, and said these words, offering them total amnesty. It's a defining moment.
So the victory wasn't military.
It was spiritual. The idols that were the source of all the conflict were peacefully taken down. The Kaaba, the holy site, was rededicated to its original purpose, the worship of one God. And the entire city of Mecca was brought into the fold without a single fight.
Now the prophet's life story ends, but that voice that started in the cave, it's just getting louder. Now we're going to look at the legacy and how that one message ignited a golden age of science and learning that would illuminate the world for centuries.
Right after the prophet's passing, leadership was handed to 4 of his closest companions. They're known as the rightly guided caliphs. Their job was to guide the young community and build on the foundations that were laid. After them, leadership would shift to powerful ruling dynasties, like the Umayyads and the Abbasids.
And it was under those dynasties that something incredible happened. At a time when Europe was in its medieval period, cities across the Islamic world, places like Baghdad, Cordoba in Spain, and Samarkand, they became these massive glowing centers of light. They were the world's hubs for science, for art, for culture. This was the Islamic Golden Age.
And this legacy was all about intellect. Scholars actively sought out ancient knowledge from Greece and Rome, translated it, and, this is the crucial part, they built on it. They innovated. A scholar named Al-Khwarizmi essentially gave us algebra. Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, wrote medical encyclopedias that were the standard in Europe for centuries. This was a civilization fueled by the pen, not just the sword.
Which brings us right back to where we started, from a single voice in a cave to a civilization of scholars. The story of Islam's origin is one of incredible resilience, profound forgiveness, and the timeless power of an idea. So it leaves us with this final thought to ponder. In a world that never stops changing, what is it that gives a message the strength to become an unbroken voice, to echo right through time?